Hello, and welcome to Voices from the Field, a Mayford podcast where we talk with educators in the field to hear about their perspectives and experiences. My name is Jake Burson, Advocacy Chair for Mayford, and today I have the pleasure of speaking with Josh Ogilvie. Josh Ogilvie is a secondary physical and health education teacher from British Columbia, Canada, and president of a provincial specialist association for physical education teachers. He led the development of his province's K-12 physical and health education curriculum, taught pre-service teachers in education in kinesiology, and coached in-service teachers in a Master of Education program. Josh is also an assessment associate with Solution Tree and leads workshops, facilitates professional development, and presents at conferences across North America on assessment and grading. He has extensive firsthand experience helping teachers and schools refine assessment practices to elevate teaching and improve student achievement. Welcome, Josh.
Thank you, Jake. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here and speak with you and just find ways to connect and help those who are in our field. Thank you.
Absolutely. Pleasure to have you. It's so exciting to be in this space with you. Before we get started, do we have anything that's making you smile these days?
Yeah, time of recording, we're going into week 2 of our spring break. So yeah, that brings a smile to my face. But just having these opportunities right now with my kids, they're 7 and 5, and
Mhm.
just loving life right now and just really tapping into that energy with them. We're out at the swimming pool today, and we're getting ready to go on a little localized trip in the next few days for about a 4 or 5 day trip. So I'm really excited about that and just spending some quality time with family before jumping back into the swing of things in school.
That's great. We all need downtime from the hustle and bustle of life. So, Josh,
Absolutely.
tell us a little bit about who you are and what your role is currently.
Yeah, thanks. I am a teacher. I am in year 22, and every time I say that number, it doesn't get any easier. It's hard to believe how quick my career has gone and moved. Um, so yeah, year 22 teaching. I'm also, as mentioned earlier, I'm president of our provincial specialist association, which would be kind of the equivalent of yourself in your state organization,
Mhm.
to try and support and advocate for our PhD teachers K through 12 here. In addition to that, I work with a lot of national organizations here in Canada, trying to connect. Our country is so vast geographically speaking, and just trying to connect each other and help each other move forward. Because unlike some places, our curriculums are jurisdictionally developed and run, and our neighbors in Alberta can have a very different curriculum than us, and very different perspectives. So we're trying to connect ourselves and move the field forward together. Aside from that, as mentioned earlier as well, I love working with teachers and supporting teachers through PD, and been working with Solution Tree for a couple of years. Love that. Been doing the working through North America with PE teachers for God, over a decade now.
Wow.
And I mean, I'm not going to get into my big story about that. There's a deep
Mhm.
story about why, but I think we all know so much PD we go to is like, yeah, this sounds great. How do I use this in my class? How do I use this in
Right.
my subject area? And
Right.
after so many years of being frustrated by that, I just kind of like, okay, I need to make things better for myself. And then as I started doing that, people started saying, hey, can you come tell me what you're doing? Can you talk to me
Mhm.
about this? And so that's something I've just didn't intend to years ago, and it's just something that kind of fell in my lap, and it's just another something else in my career that really fuels my fire to keep pushing. Is just working with teachers and the context that they have and trying to amplify their practice in ways that are meaningful for them.
That's fantastic. So you said a couple things. So you're working not only at the state level, but also at the district and even global level. And then you also mentioned the different provinces. What are some commonalities? I know you mentioned differences, but what are some commonalities between different provinces?
Lack of funding.
In regards to in regards to physical education, are there any
Yeah.
or
Yeah, no, I mean, everyone's got like lack of funding. You can't get a
right,
substitute teacher
right.
in.
Oh yeah.
But beyond all that, like
Mhm.
stuff that makes you pull your hair.
Mhm.
I think especially here in Canada is there really is a big push to kind of look at our curriculums, and not from a policy perspective. We're quite
Mhm.
lucky up here. The policies and the how they intervene in classes is less severe than a
Okay.
lot of my colleagues down in America. I hear I'm just like sometimes I hear stories and it is nightmare. But just really trying to revise our curriculums that understand the kids that we're teaching today,
Right.
but also understand ourselves.
Mhm.
So rather than burning ourselves out, how can we create a curriculum? How can we create a program for these students and ourselves that are going to meet everybody's needs? And I know that sounds like a whole lot of romantic stuff, but it's really paying attention to the teachers and the students.
Right.
We share lots of ideas, lots of advocacy pieces. There's a province on the other side of our country that just spoke with the government and got them to implement mandatory K to 12 and then like minimum time frame for all grade levels to have in PE class. When a lot of our jurisdictions there isn't, especially for the elementary years, depending on where you're at.
Right.
Oh, it's kind of a mess, but I think one thing that's great is we're able to have these conversations and like, hey, this is working for you. Let me try that in my jurisdiction. And
Right.
here's something that's working for us. Why don't we get together and collaborate and try to move things forward?
Right. And that's where having a thought partner or getting to having the opportunity to get in these groups, you find out what other folks are doing and you can kind of emulate what they're doing. That's great.
Absolutely.
So this next question, how would you describe quality physical education?
Yeah, I love that question. I'd love to have like a workshop on that because you can really dive deep. Because sometimes you give a really superficial answer, like, oh, make sure kids are having fun and blah, blah,
Right.
blah.
Right.
But to
Right.
really dive down deep into like what is it in us as educators? Where's our mindset? What's informing that? So like some of the things I'll mention aren't going to be mind-blowing to folks. For example, like we want to make sure that kids are engaged and
Mhm.
participating. We get all that.
Right.
I think something that really transformed my career, probably after year 5 or 6, early in my career, is I realized a lot of the things I was doing were not intentional. What I mean by that is my planning, my instruction, my response to the students in front of me wasn't so much intentional as much it was reactive.
Got
So
it.
I think one of the things that I learned through my career to make things quality is my planning and teaching had to be intentional in terms of here's where the aims are. Oh, we're not getting there. What do I do? Versus
Right.
we're not getting there. All those kids, and it's
Right.
like it's just being really intentional in terms of what am I trying to do today? And of course, depending on one's context, that'll look very different. Some contexts are much worse than others. Like I've worked with teachers who see kids once every 2 weeks for 20 minutes.
Oh, wow. Yep.
But even in that, that's the worst case scenario I've ever seen. But even that, it's just like we can still be quite intentional to the places where they see kids every day for like an hour and 20 minutes. There's a lot we can do, and I think one of the things that we can really do to make sure things are quality is all that fire and passion, that stuff that got us into this field is making sure that we're bringing that forward in our teaching. And more importantly, that it's how it's landing with the students and their learning.
Right.
Because a lot of times we know like there can be an endless amount of things that go awry in our classes. And it gets, especially when the seasons change. October, like we know what happens in October. You have these best laid plans and then seasons change. It gets darker, what weather patterns, and it's like, oh, okay, I just want to get the kids moving. I'm so exhausted. But having a plan, how am I going to teach these kids? How are they doing? And how do I know that things are going well or not well? And then adjusting to that.
Right.
And all those things can really, when we do that, we can really bring out these meaningful and personalized learning experiences for the students, and I always say this to educators as well, but it also helps us personalize our journey so that we don't just feel we're doing the same thing over and over and over and over again,
Right. Right.
which can be very common in our subject area.
So two things you said that stood out to me was the adjustments to practice, and also you're talking about, being intentional. So that tells me that you're very reflective in your teaching and how you, go about teaching their students. Now remind me, you're what grade level again? Are you high school? Are you sec or
Yeah, high school where I'm at now, I'm in a different district now than I was for most of my career here in British Columbia. Our high school starts in grades 9 to 12,
okay.
but for
Same here.
17 years of my career, I taught grades 8 to 12.
8 to 12. Okay. So middle school folks are a little bit different, right? Than the high school.
I've been doing a lot of work with middle school and it's elementary as well, but middle school, there's an energy that you cannot replicate no matter what grade level. Middle school is a world unto its own. And I like it myself. I actually love it. It's a lot of fun.
Right. They
But
keep you
yeah,
on, they keep us on our toes, right?
oh yes. Oh man. Yeah.
So Josh, I'm actually going to skip this next question for now because we'll dive more about that later. But what I know you're really passionate about this topic of assessment, right? You've given multiple webinars, seminars on it. You're an expert in it. What are some key points that teachers can take away and be cognizant of when it comes to this topic? Now, I know we can't give a 2-hour thing here, but just some points.
It's Usually when I start a session with teachers on assessment, I always ask if it's one that they volunteered or signed up for. It's like, what led you here? Because
Right.
it's not this glory topic where people are like, yeah, I'm excited for it.
Hmm.
My journey into assessment was from one of the most horrific experiences, not just in my personal or professional life, but also personal. I won't go into that one. Um, but for me, it was realizing, it's not as hard as I thought it would be. What I
Okay.
mean by that is I knew my major area of weakness coming out of my college is they didn't do anything around assessment. I think there was maybe like in one class, I think we talked about it for a half hour. I had no clue. So like I asked my colleagues I was teaching with the first 3 years, like, what do you do? And I'd only ask that question come report card time. And everybody I asked had a different response. So I was like, I don't know what the heck I'm doing. And I knew that. But then when I realized I need to make a shift in my career, and I got over the I can't do this, I don't know what I'm doing, and I saw things like, oh, you know what? It's actually not as hard as I thought it would be. Now, I'm saying this many years into this world. So where I go with that is what really sparked my brain into thinking about new ways of assessment was when somebody challenged me and said, don't tell me what your kids are doing in class, but what are they learning?
Mm.
I couldn't answer that question because I could say, oh, like tomorrow we're doing basketball and we're going to work on right hand, left hand dribbling. And the guy was like, okay, great. But what's the takeaway? What skills? I was like, what do you mean? They're dribbling. And I knew what he was doing. He was pressing for more, and I couldn't
Right.
articulate. And
Mm.
so when I think of this now and I tell teachers now, it's like, at the very least, what are your kids going to be learning tomorrow? How will you know that they're learning it? And what will you do next with that? And those types of questions can take something that can look super complex and try to simplify at least a mindset idea of like, how do I begin to envision this? Because if our mindset is like, I can't, I can't assess because I'm worried about kids losing activity time. Side
Right.
note, no, it's not a competition. They actually complement each other.
Mm.
I know like early in my career, I would do things with students. I would do the traditional skills testing where one kid was performing and everybody else was watching. I haven't done that in decades.
Right.
Um,
Because
and
it's not authentic, right?
No, it's not.
Yeah.
And that's what you
Yeah.
want. Exactly. You
Right.
want that authentic assessment. So like what you're looking for is happening in the environment that is intended to occur. That's how you know things are doing well. It's like
Right.
you're not going to teach your kids how to drive playing a video game, then give them the car keys and say, okay, go to the corner store. Like if they're not able to actually perform the skill, then you don't know how they're doing. And so really putting them in that environment to see how they can do that and perform that skill or demonstrate that conceptual understanding, depending on what you're assessing, of course.
Right.
So just being cognizant of like, what are the kids learning? How do I know? And of course, you need some sort of criteria to
Right.
understand. Can't just go in gut reaction because if kids don't know what they're doing, then they're just sitting
Yeah.
there and they're wasting cognitive bandwidth
Right.
trying to understand what am I supposed to do?
So some of this criteria, are we talking about like I can statements? That's success criteria.
You absolutely, if you want to go with the I can statements, absolutely. I tell teachers all the time, whatever you're doing, if you're doing I can statements, point form, whatever it is, like
Right.
have it visual, talk with kids, model it, show it. And then when you're giving feedback, and this is something else, a lot of teachers are like, well, how do I give feedback? It's like, if you don't know what you're giving feedback on, it's really hard to give feedback. We can give praise, good job, well done,
Right.
but nothing substantiates that. So if you can say, good job on flicking the wrist on the basketball shot, I'm just using that for an example.
Mm.
If you can give context to the praise, that actually gives kids an idea of what they did good or well on, and then some now try this, like what's the next step for them to do? And those don't have to be long conversations. Like a
They
lot
can
of
be
PE
short.
teachers are giving feedback already, and I always encourage them just take it one, like maybe 4 or 5 words more,
Right.
and just good. What are they doing good or well at? What is that next piece? And then you'll see it's actually not that hard because we do it all the time in class.
I
We're always
really like how you mentioned this because you're focusing not only on the positive, but also saying, I wonder what you can do next to improve. It's kind of making the students think themselves, right? You're not giving them
absolutely.
the answer. It's kind of like that inquiry approach where they have to, you're guiding them, facilitating, but they're also kind of figuring it out for themselves, right?
And that's something I say as well to teach all the time. We have this inner drive. We want to see kids succeed. That's awesome.
Hmm.
But if we give kids the tips of exactly what to do, they're going to replicate. But if we give suggestive feedback, for example, before break, I was working some kids on throwing. It's like, what do you think would happen to your throw if you step back a little further and carried your back foot forward? I'm talking about weight transfer and all that. Well, I didn't give those clues. So what do you think would happen with that? Well, I don't know. He tried it and it's like, oh, I threw it further. I'm like, oh, okay, so let's explain why that is. Right? You give some suggestions, and I know it might take longer, but the idea is you want the kids to improve the performance, not replicate what you're telling them to.
Right.
And of course, I feel for the teachers like, I've got 60 kids in my class, and yeah, that's going to take some finessing and it's going to take some work with that. But the idea behind the feedback is, what am I doing well? Then what is the next step?
Right. And once you can do this process with a few students, I'm sure it gets easier and easier as you get more proficient at it, right?
Absolutely.
You know, you
Absolutely.
mentioned 60 students, and that was actually going to lead me to my next question is here in the States, we have PE, depends, once or twice a week, depending on the district, but our students are 24 to 27. How is PE different in your experience from Canada to the States? Like what maybe some differences you've seen or even some commonalities, but let's start with differences.
Difference is,
Yeah,
and this is of course mass generalizations here. So
yeah,
if I
of
say anything
course.
to offend a listener, I don't
That-
know you, I don't
You
know
don't
your
mean it.
background. Um, in my experiences of the
Uh-huh.
last decade plus working with teachers, PE teachers in North America, some of the difference I would say, culturally speaking, athletics is so much more deeply ingrained in American culture than in Canadian culture, which probably explains why, A, we don't get many Stanley Cups up here and a lot of things. Where I'm going with that is I have seen a more people tend to be open and welcome to sports being all thing to do or a method of using versus PE is about sports.
Right.
Um, in a lot of sessions I've run down in the States, a lot of the PE teachers will come up to me like, I love what you're talking about assessment and grading, but I've got, everything is team-based sports. It's all competitive based. Whereas up here, that's still implemented, but
Right.
it's not as the challenge to moving, I don't want to say move away from it because it has a place.
Right.
The challenge to creating something where it has a place versus it being the place tends to be easier discussions I have found up in Canada than in the States, but it's not an either or.
Hmm.
I've also found I don't want to say reliance because it's not that. What do you mean we can't do fitness testing? Why wouldn't we do fitness testing? I have found to be a lot more that discussion and that like, tends to be a lot more presence in the American colleagues I speak with.
Hmm.
Um, like I said, I'm year 22. I haven't done fitness testing since year 2. I don't know many teachers, and it does happen up here, but I don't know many teachers that are ride or die with got to do fitness testing for grading
Sure.
purposes.
It may be part of that reason is we have, of course, the Fitness Gram and the Cooper Institute, and we have all these
Yeah,
institutions that have kind of made these fitness tests. I don't know whether they have the same thing in Canada, but um,
yeah,
it's pretty common here. So yeah, I do hear that as well.
yeah,
How do we test our kids, and how
yeah.
often do we test them? And I can't test them because we have 60 like you said, 60 students. So
Right?
I think if
Yeah,
we're creative though, when we find a way to like you said earlier, test authentically and have students, I went to one of your webinars before and you talked about ipsative assessment, right?
yes,
I
yeah,
really like that. So just
yeah.
just describe for our listeners what if you could the idea of this ipsative assessment because I really like that.
Good.
So go
Yeah,
ahead.
yeah. And I want to say for the record too, because
Yeah.
sometimes you have this conversation, like
Uh-huh.
you bring up fitness testing and people like to camp in one of two camps, and it's
Hmm.
very rarely is anything one of two. It's either for or against. Like, no,
Right.
it's a tool. It can
Right.
be used in a lot of different ways. And I love the idea of personalizing fitness. So like the learner, the student, each person's on their own journey because that is what's really happening.
Correct.
And rather than coming up with these norms, which if we haven't studied where the norms come from, that's a problem, but that's a different story.
Hmm.
So the ipsative assessment is basically it's a personalized form of assessment where they are comparing most current progress or most current goals, results, whatever, with previous,
Got
and
it.
then also throw kids into like what worked, what didn't. And if you think of what we as adults do, those who exercise regularly, is they will likely, hopefully, at some point set their own goals, and then at some point they're going to say, did I reach them or not? What do I need to adjust? And that's the whole ipsative assessment piece is they're compared to themselves and how did they progress or not from the previous time they did a test or an assessment of some sort.
Hmm.
So if I want to do, my goal is to do 30 push-ups and I can currently do one, if the next assessment or check-in, whatever you want to call it, is going to be in a month's time, hopefully I can do like 3 or 4. If
Right,
I'm still doing one, then I'm like, okay, I haven't progressed.
right,
What did I do between that assessment and this one? What do I
hmm,
need to do to change the next one?
right.
So the
It's
whole
it.
idea is really putting the onus on the student to what's meaningful for you,
Mm,
what goal do you want to achieve? And of course, this is going to be foreign for so many kids. So you work with them about how can I develop an assessment or an action plan to
right.
get where I'm going? Because
Kind of
some
goal
kids,
setting,
I mean,
right? Setting the goals
yeah,
for themselves.
and then I've done this for so many years with kids, and something I try to do, especially early on in the course, is make sure they understand, A, what are some exercises that can work in different muscle parts, how to perform them, but also how to make sure it's challenging enough, not too
Mm,
challenging and not too little, but
right,
challenging enough that you can actually use this as part of your action plan, depending on which aspect of fitness they want to target.
right. And it's so personal too, because everyone's going to be at a different level, right?
And that's, you
So,
take that whole thing, like seen so many people do, and I did it early in my career where everybody's doing it at the same time and you paste the norms on the board. And either
right,
in my first year, because I thought it's what we had to do, is we put everybody's name. And everyone's seeing whose results, and that is just
right.
humiliating if you're not in the top 2 or 3, 4 people.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
it really
exactly.
is the antithesis of what we want to do as PE teachers. You want to instill that inner confidence that, yeah, I can succeed. Even if I'm not even close to the top, I am progressing.
No, that's really fantastic. I really, yeah, I really, that really stood out with me, the Ipsative assessment in compared to
Thank you.
like some of the other ones that, more traditional assessments,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
your skill-based ones.
yeah.
Um, so what advice would you give to somebody new entering the field? Somebody who just graduated or somebody who just, who might, just new in 2025, somebody new in the
Yeah.
field.
It's great you're saying that because I speak with so many, especially up here in Canada, I speak with so many pre-service teachers who are just about to enter the field.
Hmm,
And one of the things I say to them all the time is, A, thank you for reaching out to me, but B, find your people outside of your school, wherever you are, because, I can speak a lot from the high school level. Like in our offices, we're always together, but it can be very lonely place, especially if you're trying to do something that is not quote unquote on par with everybody else or not what everybody else is doing.
right,
Like the idea of groupthink is my experience is like if you go against the grain, oh my God, like I have had people try to get me fired because I'm trying to do something different.
right.
Right. And it's intense. It can be intense. And if you're not connecting with people outside of your school setting, this could become like, is this my reality? I
Right.
don't want to feel this sense of dread and the sense of I don't want to be here. And it's like we went back to earlier collaborating with others. Like the
Mhm.
more you can hear what other people are doing and sharing, pick up ideas and share ideas with them, the more you're going to feel connected to the field and inspired to try something different. So I guess I would say to beginning teachers is much as you can focus on your job, but if you can connect with 1 or 2 people outside your school, you got social media, which good and bad, depending on how
Oh
you
yeah.
use it, right? It's a love-hate relationship for sure.
Hmm.
But just really trying to extend your network so you can learn not just from the people you're with, but people that you can connect with outside of your school setting.
I love that. Having somebody who shares the same, kind of ideas and thought processes, you can bounce ideas off each other. It just is a support network, as you mentioned.
Absolutely.
Because
Yeah,
yeah, no, I agree with you. When you're trying to do something to better yourself or better the profession, and it goes against the grain of what other people are think, it could be a challenge. So no,
absolutely.
I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
So Josh, you've been on many webinars, you've created different webinars, you've done many things, worked for Solution Tree. What are some resources that are available for teachers, PE teachers out there?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's in terms of there's a number of resources out there that there's a couple books. I can't remember who published them. I apologize if I'm
No
butchering
worries,
the
no
names. I
worries.
can't
Yeah.
recall them, but there's definitely some books out there around assessments. One of the ones that I really like, it's not an assessment one, it's Meaningful Physical Education.
Okay.
It's a little green book. It's thin, but
Oh,
it's got
yeah.
some,
I think I saw that on social media actually. Yeah.
yeah,
Is
and,
it
and and
Fletcher?
it
Is it Fletcher?
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Fletcher, Deidre, Gleddy, there's a whole bunch
Yeah,
of them.
that's it. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and it's a great one because sometimes like you read the facets, the pieces of what meaningful PE framework are, and you're like, okay, it's not that hard. But what you do in that book is you read stories from teachers across the world and how they're using it.
Hmm.
And it's a great way to like, yeah, I get the idea of what, social is or fun, but seeing what they're doing, like, oh, I get that. I get what this person doing. I can try this, or like, I love that idea. I'm going to try that in my class. Like some of the examples in there talk about, and perhaps our younger teachers would know, but the old stereo systems where you can adjust everything,
Oh, I remember those. Yeah.
yeah, the equalizers, right? You're
Hmm.
adjusting it, and one of the teachers uses as a reference of how you can tone this one up and tone this one down. And when I read that, I was like, that resonates with me, because a lot of times people will take these things like, I got to throw everything into my class. And it's like, no, contextually speaking, in this moment, in this environment, what does this environment need more of? And what I love
Right.
about the book too is they really emphasize student voice, because we are one of, if we have 27 kids, we're one of 28 people in the class. We can't
Right.
have all the answers,
Right.
but getting that input from the kids is like, this is what they're saying they need, or be more beneficial. Let's do that.
So it sounds like we really need to get their voice, but also get their feedback as well, and maybe give them choices and options, but get their, is it fun? Why is it fun? Have them write down, maybe talk with a partner, tell us, and really listen to them and see
Yeah.
where they're coming from to kind of get their viewpoint.
Well, and this is the thing, like I've run workshops and I've run coaching sessions and cohorts on setting the conditions
Hmm.
to maximize internal motivation. We can't know what's important to kids. And when we do, then we understand how we can, set some of the conditions here. So like if you like competitive volleyball and I hate competitive volleyball, I'll play if it's for fun. That gives me clues. Okay, I can have two options if I
Right.
can make that happen, because I know what's going to appeal to you.
Right.
Right. And so, but if we don't get that input, then we're just guessing. And usually what happens is we aim for the middle, and you miss so many when you aim for the middle.
Right. That's such a good point. I'll put that link in the show notes.
Yeah, it's a great
So
read.
awesome. So Josh, in our next question, in your work with stakeholders or other professionals, what are some common questions you might get in regards to physical education?
I love that question, because it honestly really depends on the stakeholder. Not
Right.
to be like, well, it depends, like the lawyer answer.
Yeah.
Um, in the, I'll say the higher ups, meaning the highest level of government that I've been able to connect with.
Hmm.
I've had some really, I'm not sharing names, so it's not my place to do that. I've had some really intriguing conversations where I suspected I was like 2 to 3 levels from the premier of our province, which is like the head level of the province.
Okay.
And I was speaking with like 2 or 3 levels of seniority down. And the questions came, what do PE teachers need? Which blew my mind. I was like, whoa, what? You're actually willing to listen to that?
Wow.
But it was more of what do they need? What do we know? Because we're not in the field, we don't know. So some of the questions I get from some people are, they have no clue what's happening. And I love it when they're open to that. But when I look at that and when they don't know what's happening, is I wonder, where are their interpretations? What are their experiences? When they perceive our field, what's fueling that perception?
Right.
And so it's really tricky to have those conversations, because we're not, I mean, you can't just walk into a state building or a provincial building like, I want to talk to the head of office here. It just doesn't work that way, right?
No, no.
When I speak with administrators, be it principals, vice principals, or superintendents, those conversations usually center around localized stuff, which I totally understand. But it's never, I think in my 10 plus years of working with schools and teachers across North America, I could probably count on both my hands, maybe not quite that much, how many conversations have been around, oh, my PE teachers. Like from a complaint point of view, more often than not, it's like, I want to support them, but I don't really know how to.
Hmm.
And I don't want to offend them. And I'm just like, have a conversation with them.
Right.
What's one thing, like if it's a PD day, what would they want to do versus everybody comes and listens to the greatest science of reading, which is, don't get me wrong,
Yeah.
But if you're having this thing you really want to work on in PE and you have to go about science of reading, that might be one of many experiences that is like, how many times do we have to go and not be seen or valued? At least that feeling of that.
Right.
I
Yeah.
always try to encourage people to have those conversations the best they can. Um, Other than that, yeah, more often than not, if it's not about curriculum based, it's how do I support the PE teachers?
Which is
Because
a
a lot,
great question. I mean, I love that question that they're even asking that,
yeah, I
because
do too.
yeah,
I love that they do, and I just encourage them, go ask.
yeah, yeah, go hear it from the horse's mouth, right? As they say. But no, that's
Yeah,
so important. We want to have our profession is valuable, obviously, but we want to have, the support from those stakeholders or the people helping
absolutely.
finance, whatever it is. So, but no,
Absolutely.
that's great. So, you've been in the field a while. How has the field changed since you started? I'm sure there's many ways, but maybe like the top two.
Yeah, how has it changed? I share this with students every time a course starts, and I was like, if you ever hear me say students these days, please catch me because I remember being a student hearing that. I'm like, oh,
Mhm.
but I mean, yes, the world, I mean, not only has the world changed, student culture's changed drastically. Of course, I would say I'm not going to point the finger necessarily at cell phones or mobile phones.
Mhm.
I'm going to say I think the biggest challenge that I have seen since I began teaching in 2001, I had a couple years off, has been the advent or how much technology has centralized itself in our life. And I'm not just talking students, I mean everybody, like adults as well. And just how much things are taken for granted. And so like I know when I noticed cell phones becoming an issue, I used to be like villainizing kids for it. And then what do I do when I go in the office is I'm on my phone, right? I'm taking, subway home, I'm on my phone. It's like,
Right.
oh, that
You
is
catch
how I see
yourself.
that. Yeah, it's and you think of like when I began teaching, if I had a class of 30 kids, which wasn't uncommon,
Mhm.
I could probably predict two-thirds of the class having enough, not just fundamental movement skill, but conceptual awareness and understanding to participate pretty effectively in any game. That number has dropped to maybe 20%
Mhm.
compared to like 66%. And there's so many reasons for that. Like, A, life is becoming expensive for a number of years, but just what people are doing in their time has shifted. And I'm seeing in youth that has shifted so much that it's not even that they don't have the skills, they don't have the experience, they don't have the exposure. And
Right.
so that's drastically had to shift how I teach because a lot of my early careers was traditional team games. And
Mhm.
then I started realizing most of these kids don't know that or have they know of it but never played it and they don't like it. How can I use this activity as a trying to reach my goal if there's just a struggle. So for me, I've had to be very responsive to the kids in front of me in ways, but also having that structure like here are the big targets. These are our curriculum, like our learning standards we're doing. And what I started doing probably about 10 years ago is the first unit of the course is all what I call like minor play, recreational games, whatever you want to term it.
Mhm.
It's just a way for me to get a view of the kids. How do they interact with each other? Are they seeming hesitant? Are they seeming overly competitive? Just getting a lay of the land of who's
Mhm.
there. And from that, I also get some information from the kids. I'll do some surveys, just little quick bits like, what do you like? What do you not like? What are activities? What experiences do you have? So I can take that information and try to tailor which activities I'm going to use based on that data.
Interesting.
Whereas before I used to have, here's everything we're doing, like it or not. And then you
Right.
just see, especially when times get tough, kids really just like, I'm out.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah. They kind of like they give up or whatnot. But I really
yeah,
like that you're setting up the environment and you're observing them. But not only that, you're also taking the data and using that data to benefit the students and your teaching. So that's a
yeah,
really reflective. So
yeah.
I actually didn't have this question on the script, but we were talking about technology. So I'm going to ask it. What are your thoughts about AI in regards to physical education?
It's it's new-ish, depending
Uh-huh.
on one's exposure to it. When it first came out, I was intrigued in terms of like, can it really do what everybody's doing or saying it was going to do? And
Mhm.
I started using it just as I want to play around. Blew my mind at how quick things could get done. Quality, then I've learned the quality of the prompts you use will determine
Mhm.
the quality of the output you get for the most part, right?
Interesting. Right.
I can definitely see, and I use this a lot. I started using this the last 2 or 3 years when I'm running sessions or work groups with teachers, is I've started providing prompts for teachers who are like, I don't have time to unpack a standard. I want to do it, but I can't. Like, give them some prompts and boom, literally within 10 seconds, maybe even faster,
Mm.
it can unpack. And then you don't, I always say, don't just take what they do and then plug it in. Like, you got to use professional expertise because
Right.
sometimes the stuff that puts out is like, oh God, not even close. I actually had an argument with ChatGPT probably about 2 weeks ago, like, what's the problem here? And I was like, why am I writing that?
That's
But
funny.
yeah, more often than not, it's just showing how much time it can save us.
Mm.
I think where we can go wrong is when we plug a prompt in, take it, plug it, and go do it without using our professional discretion.
Right.
Does this work? Does this not work? But
Right.
it can really do a lot of the things what I call behind the scenes to teaching,
Hmm.
the unpacking and then planning. How do I scope and sequence these things? If you're using rubrics, are they progressing in a logical manner? Are the criteria listed in there? Are
Hmm.
they actually assessing what it is it's saying? Like, AI can look for these things and give suggestions.
Mm.
And I've used that with teachers, like, you can pump out a rubric in seconds, and
Yeah.
then does this really look like,
Whereas back in the day, you were spending what, probably hours trying to
oh
develop a
my
rubric, right?
God,
Depending
then
on
you
the
do
type of
that.
rubric, you know. But
Yeah, and someone goes, oh, level 3 looks like it should be 4, and 4 should be like, oh, don't say that because you spend like half a day doing it, and then you don't want to share because you're not sure if it's perfect, and it's
right,
like
right.
it's the opposite of what we want, and
Mm.
it's I always tell people too, with whatever you're using, it's not going to be perfect. But here's the thing, here's like your if it's useful for you and the students, if the students know what it means and can use it to
Mhm.
gauge their learning and what they're doing next, and you can do the same, then that's an effective tool.
Right,
If it's worded perfectly, but the students can't use it, you can't use it, that's a garbage tool,
right.
right? Because the thing with that assessment, whatever tool it may be using, if it's a checklist, a frequency scale, it's a rubric, whatever it might be, if it's not usable, then it's not effective.
Right. It's not realistic either. So yeah.
Well, yeah, that's people. I have another thing I should have said earlier about assessment is not everything has to be rubricized.
Mm.
Rubric has a place and time, right? It's not a Swiss Army tool.
Right.
It really depends on what you're looking for.
Use the right. So what I'm hearing you saying is use the right tool for the right time. And yeah,
Absolutely.
that makes
Yeah.
sense. That makes sense. Um, so what advice would you give our listeners? Or what's something that you might want them to take away with them?
It's if you've ever felt, it's hard to say as I don't know who I'm talking to, but I'm put
Yeah.
it out there
Yeah.
because the more vulnerable we are, the more we'll
Yeah.
connect with people. If you have ever felt moments of wondering if teaching PE is in your future, and what got you into teaching PE was something you loved it, it was exciting, you're getting to the point now you're like, I don't think I can do it anymore. I caution you not, I mean, you know your life best, but I caution you not to make a life-changing decision without exploring ways to make what you wanted to do more
Hmm.
possible. Like, I know some people, they're exhausted, they're burnt out, and then they just leave PE. They go
Right.
teach something else, or they leave the job altogether without
Mhm.
really trying to make shifts and changes. And so that's, I guess what I'm saying is if you're feeling like I have, I felt this a couple times in my career. And one year I did take a 1 year leave of absence and moved out of district, and different story.
Mhm.
Thankfully, I didn't quit. I came back to my position and I was fired up to, that little bit of time away really reinvigorated me into like, here's what I want to do, here's what I want to be, but here's what I don't want anymore. And
Right.
that was one of the things that kickstarted my dive into assessment, is
Right.
I didn't want to feel like I was rolling out the balls anymore. I didn't want to feel like I was behavior managing anymore. I
Mhm.
wanted to get in there with the kids and really have an intentional part in helping them learn and helping them find that success. And we all know that when you see kids experience that success and that little smirk or the big smile comes on their face, or they're like, I never thought I could do that. Like, those are some of the things that you can't
Yeah,
take away, you can't forget.
definitely.
And if you're finding that you haven't had that experience in a while, I know it's hard to envision taking on more, but what is one, like really taking some time and looking in, like, what is one thing that could bring excitement back?
Mm.
It doesn't have to be the world of assessment. There are so many things. And sometimes, like I said, for me earlier, it was taking a bit of a time, like 1 year away, and I came back to my role. It doesn't have to be that drastic. But just, like we know teachers are burning out so quickly.
Yeah, I mean
And
for a variety of reasons too.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
no, that's great advice. Just taking some time but like you said, getting more involved in maybe the state association, maybe volunteering on a board, maybe
Yeah.
coaching, maybe being a mentor. We
Yeah.
all, I don't know how it is in Canada, but do you have mentors for new teachers?
No.
Oh, okay. So yeah,
That
here,
that's another thing I
yeah,
envy of the system. And I shouldn't say it's everybody in America, but a lot of schools I work with in
mhm,
districts, they have instructional coaches and
yeah,
love them or hate them. But a role to support teachers is
right,
like at least in my jurisdiction, we may have some at the district level. They're called curriculum coordinators, and their
mhm,
portfolios are massive. You don't
right,
necessarily get the how can I support you? It's more like what resource do you want?
right,
But the idea of mentors is, I mean, that is so powerful, especially not just for those coming in, but for those who have experience to be able to share experience and connect with others.
right. Yeah, that's so important.
Yeah,
So, Josh, thank you for that answer. And being, honest and open about that. So, a couple more questions. What are
certainly.
some hopes that you have, either professional or personal, in the future for yourself or for the field, or what are your goals?
Yeah, let's go
I know it's a big
big.
question.
Yeah, let's go big or go home here on the
Yeah.
first one. My hopes is my big romantic hope is
Mhm,
that we see, I don't know the word to use, we'll see a shift in our field, and not just between our two countries, but in our field globally. And where I'm gonna come back to an area of strength in my career around the assessment and grading piece.
mhm,
And if you dive into the research on it, I don't expect many people to do it. The challenges we're having in North America are global, and they have been for decades. My hope is that in the next 5 to 10 years, we see more of a movement, a shift on what does quality assessment in a PE setting look like.
mhm,
And then there's PD for PE teachers, but it's not the one-offs. And I kind of feel silly saying this because it's a lot of the PD that I deliver, but that's just because of the system. Like the best ones I deliver the ongoing systems. It's
right.
ongoing PD because we know what happens when you have an idea you loved, you tried for a couple days, you are going to hit a bump.
Hmm,
Where do you go when that bump is
right.
hit?
What's the next step, right?
Exactly. That's where
Right.
you need that ongoing support
Hmm,
to really implement something and look at sustainable change. Without that, it's the PD model that many of our districts use. We know, like research is clear on this. It's a failed system.
hmm,
It doesn't lead to the changes that we aspire to. So my hope in the assessment world is that the research comes out to stop saying for decades we know that we need more intentional assessment and grading, but we're looking at like, wow, this process really helps shift practices and more importantly, experiences for teachers and students.
hmm.
I don't know what that process is. But I say go big or go home. That's a hope I have.
No, that's great. No, if I get what you're saying is a shift in the mindset, a shift in how PD is delivered, but also, as you mentioned, these, you call them one-offs, like
Yeah,
you get an idea or you get a tool and you use it, and then maybe there's an issue with it. So then what's the next step? How do
yeah,
you consistently implement a new practice with fidelity, and in how are you going to get that support too? And
yeah,
so,
absolutely.
Josh, I know you have a program that you're offering. Is the cohort still going on, or is it?
Yeah, it's
You want
not
to talk
right
about
now.
it? Okay.
We finished yet. I this year because it's a great segue into what we just said, or from what we just said.
Yeah.
After so many years of doing the standalones, the 1 day PD, sometimes it's 2 days in that school. I've had a few where you've come back a few in the year,
Mm-hmm.
and it got me thinking, especially from a PE lens, it's the system isn't set up that I've been able to see where I can come in and work with a lot of PE teachers on an ongoing basis. So I made the shift this last September that what is an answer for what teachers were looking for? Because last spring I spoke with PE teachers across North America about like, what are your experiences? What are your challenges? What would work for you? And they were very loud and they want something ongoing.
Mm-hmm.
So I developed two different cohorts, and it's an online program, a coaching program. One was on ways to set the conditions to promote internal motivation for students, but also in that one was what can teachers do to not burn themselves out trying to get that. All right. And the other one was on assessment and grading. And those have been great experiences. It's been tremendous working with teachers and just the different experiences. Um, what we know about PE teachers that most teachers don't have is after school and weekends are usually busy, if not with family, then with coaching.
Right.
So that's been a couple of barriers for people. So I'm continuing to do those. But what it's great timing right now, perhaps a little self-promotion, is I'm
All
getting
right.
ready to launch a membership
Okay.
for teachers. And it's not, if you think of like a PD session, where sometimes it can feel like somebody's opened a fire hose and then boom, all this information coming. The idea behind the membership is like an irrigation system where there's like little bits at a time, implement, try, let's discuss, let's collaborate, and then move on to like keep moving forward, but
Mhm.
small bits, quick wins at a time versus here's 17 things to try this year and we
You
know
get
what's going to
overwhelmed, right?
happen.
No, I love that approach, because then you could refine whatever you're doing, get
Yeah,
support with it. So yeah, send me some information about that. I'll put the links or whatever you send me in the show notes. Make sure folks have that. That
wonderful.
sounds
Yes,
really
absolutely.
interesting.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, of course. And so, Josh, how can our listeners connect with you? What type of platforms are you on?
Yeah, it's making this move to this online world. Like I've had a website for a while, but I'm not a website developer and it's been pretty outdated, but it's up and running. So my website at jogilvie.com
Okay.
is in there, and I'll send you this information as
Perfect.
well. That's where I have all the information related to the programs and the upcoming membership
Mhm.
information. Like many people, I'm on Blue Sky, although I can't remember my username on it. You
I'm on
type
there
up,
too. Yeah, it's a weird news username. I switched over
yeah,
from
it's got
it.
all these things. I
Yeah.
still got my Twitter account. I can't call it X. I don't know for how much longer. I haven't been active on there.
Mhm.
I find the more activity I get on there are people sending me DMs than like any sort of like
Oh,
stream
interesting.
stuff. So, but yeah, those are, and I'm on LinkedIn as well.
Okay. So those three
But
options. All right. Yeah, we'll make
yeah,
sure to link all that in the show notes.
wonderful.
Well, Josh, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for coming on. You've expanded my mind. I think it's been great for our listeners. So, I hope to have you on again at some point, but thanks again. I
Absolutely.
really appreciate your time.
Thank you for
So,
having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
of course, thank you so much. So, listeners, if you have any questions, you could always email us at mayfordpodcast@gmail.com. We'll have this episode uploaded soon. Until next time, take care.